Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another modern gameplay video. Today we're having some fun with Biovisionary, 3 mana for a 2/3 creature that says at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So this is one of those alternate win condition cards that tries to win the game in an unconventional way, and our entire deck is built around getting 4 copies of Biovisionary in play as soon as possible. So we've got a bunch of ways to copy Biovisionary with clone effects, and we've got other ways to find creatures in our deck. So let's take a look at our entire deck list, starting out with the 1-drops where we have some mana acceleration in the form of a Noble Hierarch, which also has Exalted, which can be useful if we're on the plan B of attacking with creatures, and then 4 copies of Birds of Paradise, which also helps us make 1 mana of any color, which is useful since we have so many 3-drops in the deck that we can play on turn 2 if we start with a turn 1 Birds or Noble. Then at 2 mana we've got 4 copies of Phantasmal Image, which is one of our many clone effects. Enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except in this case it's also an illusion in addition to its other types, and whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, we have to sacrifice it, so that's kind of the drawback of the illusion. But this is a very easy way for us to copy Biovisionary once it's already in play, so we can more quickly get to the 4 required copies to win the game. Then at 2 mana we also have 4 copies of Coiling Oracle, 2 mana for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it into play right away, otherwise you have to put it into your hand. So this is kind of an upgraded version of Elvish Visionary, just a nice value creature on turn 2 that we can play with a nice enters the battlefield ability. So if we don't have a Biovisionary in play that we can copy with our clone effects, we can always copy a Coiling Oracle instead to provide a bit of advantage. Then at 3 mana we've got a lot of creatures in our deck, of course our 4 copies of Biovisionary. Then we have some value creatures in the form of Eternal Witness, 3 mana for a 2/1, that when it enters the battlefield lets us return a card from our graveyard back to our hand, so if they manage to kill one of our Biovisionaries we can get it back. We also have 2 copies of Courser of Krufix, 3 mana for a 2/4 enchantment creature that says play with the top card of your library revealed, and you can play the top card of your library if it's a land card, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control we also gain 1 life, so just a nice card advantage engine that helps us get to our good cards faster by letting us play lands off the top of our deck. Then we also have 4 copies of Mirror Image, which is another clone effect, letting us copy a creature we control, so that's a restriction, we can't copy creatures from the opponent. And then finally 4 copies of Militia Bugler, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Vigilance, and when the Bugler enters the battlefield we can look at the top 4 cards of our library and then reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among those and put it into our hand. So Militia Bugler helps us find Biovisionary, but it also helps us find Phantasmal Image and Mirror Image to clone a potential Biovisionary that's already in play, and every single creature in our main deck has power 2 or less, so we can find it with a Bugler, making it into a nice 2-for-1. And then of course we've got 4 copies of Collected Company, 4 mana instant, that's a perfect fit in this deck, letting us look at the top 6 cards of our library, and then we can put up to 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from among those on the battlefield, and the rest goes on the bottom in a random order, so it helps us find our Biovisionaries and clone effects, and other value creatures, since essentially all the creatures in our deck have converted mana cost 3 or less, so we're very likely to find at least 2 good creatures. One important thing I should mention about Collected Company in this deck, since we're playing all these clone effects, is that you're not allowed to clone one of the creatures you find with Collected Company should you also find a clone effect. For example, if you find a Mirror Image and a Biovisionary, then Mirror Image is not allowed to enter the battlefield as a copy of the Biovisionary you found. If you already have a Biovisionary in play, then that's totally fine, but if you don't have any other creatures in play that you can copy, then your clone does nothing, so make sure to always have at least 1 creature in play that you can copy with your Mirror Image or Phantasmal Image should you find them with Collected Company, otherwise it might be a little bit underwhelming. But on the other hand, if you find an Eternal Witness with Collected Company, the company will already be in the graveyard by the time you can return a card with Eternal Witness, so you're fine to return the Collected Company back to your hand, so you can cast it a second time. And then last but not least, we have 2 copies of Mirrorweave, 4 mana for an instant that says each other creature becomes a copy of target a non-legendary creature until end of turn. So the goal is to have a Biovisionary in play alongside at least 3 other creatures, and then you can play Mirrorweave targeting Biovisionary and win the game on the end of turn. That covers the main deck. Let's take a look at our mana base. We've got a total of 8 fetch lands, 4 copies of Misty Rainforest, 4 copies of Windswept Heath, alongside a bunch of basic lands that we can fetch up, 1 plains, 1 island, 3 basic forests, and then a bunch of dual lands that we can also find with our fetch lands, a Temple Garden, Hallowed Fountain, and 2 breeding pools. Then we've got Gavany Township, letting us put +1/+1 counters on all our creatures, which is useful if we're on the plan B of just attacking with creatures. and then a Horizon Canopy, which we can sacrifice if we're floating out a bit to draw a card, and 3 copies of Botanical Sanctum comes into play untapped if it's one of our first 3 lands. Then taking a look at our sideboard, we see a lot of white cards, which is typical for modern decks. 3 Path to Exile as removal, 3 Rest in Peace against graveyard decks, Spellsky to help protect our creatures from removal, shines against burn spells, can also bring it in against Bogles to steal their enchantments, 2 Stony Silence against artifact-based decks, Eidolon of Rhetoric shines against decks like Storm. We've got 2 copies of Tireless Tracker for the grindy matchups like Control and Midrange, for when we need to draw some extra cards. Then 2 copies of Spell Queller, giving us a bit of disruption, letting us essentially counter an opposing spell. And then a Reclamation Sage to deal with artifacts and enchantments. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw with a Landlight hand, but we do have double Birds of Paradise and a Coiling Oracle. So I think I'm tempted to keep no Biovisionaries, but we do have Collected Company, Mirror Image, and then Witness and Oracle can also provide kind of an advantage, so somewhat a sketchy keep, but we'll see. We'll play a turn on Birds here. Opponent with turn 1 Verdant fetches up a tapped Overgrown Tomb end of turn. So it could be a black-green midrange deck. Gets another Overgrown Tomb into turn 2 Heartless Summoning. Alright, so Heartless Summoning deck. I think here we're just going to go Coiling Oracle plus another Birds. Let's see what we find with Oracle. Picked up a Plains. And we'll play another bird. Alright, let's see if they have something big to cast here. So they could cast a 4 mana creature without a land and a 5-drop if they also have a land. It's going to be a 1 mana Ramanap Excavator. So this is the Excavator, Tireless Tracker, Oracle of Muldaya, Landfall deck. Another Excavator on top. Usually also see Obnixilis in the deck. And there's Biovisionary. I think we do want to get Biovisionary in play before we Company. If we Company into 2 clones, we can at least copy the Visionary instead. So this turn we probably just want to go Visionary plus Coiling Oracle. That seems fine. So we'll lead with Coiling Oracle. Play Biovisionary. And say go. If we find a Mirror Weave, we could also win. So we've got some options here. Alright. Meanwhile, our opponent's kind of going off with their Excavator and Oracle of Muldaya. Plays a Polluted Delta. And of course, Oracle plus fetch lands gives you a lot of selection over the top of your deck. Finds a second Heartless Summoning. The second one not as important as the first copy. Draws with Horizon Canopy, finds Tireless Tracker, that's kind of the big payoff card for playing all those lands. Alright, pick up a land, so we've got a few options here. So we don't have the mana to Collected Company and Mirror Image, we only have 6 mana this turn. Which means we probably just want to go Noble, and then end of turn Collected Company. Could also start attacking with the Biovisionary, don't know if that's really necessary. So I think I'm just gonna say go here. Alright, Wayward Swordtooth, another way to play extra lands. So 1 mana Tireless Tracker. They can play a ton of lands out of the graveyard still, which gives them clues, which draws them cards. So their opponent's definitely going off. The hope is that they don't find any relevant interaction in the meantime. Swordtooth gives them the City's Blessing. Second clue from Tracker. Opponent's gonna shuffle away the Inquisition with the fetch land, but there's another Inquisition on top. And they're gonna draw into the Inquisition with the clue. So they will be able to take Mirror Image or Eternal Witness. So might as well let this resolve. Give them less information about the company since they can't take that anyway. Takes the Mirror Image. So we might be able to Eternal Witness back the Collected Company. And another fetch land. Hoping they don't have Fatal Push here to kill the Biovisionary with Revolt. I think we'll fetch a Forest and then cast a Company. And alright, we found some clones. Phantasmal Image and Mirror Image can both copy Biovisionary, that seems good. And then we can untap Eternal Witness, get back Mirror image, cast mirror image, and that should be game, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, so game 1 got to win with Biovisionary, up against Heartless Landfall, I guess you can call it. So how do we want to sideboard? Opponent's going to be bringing in some extra removal spells. I don't know if fighting them with Tireless Tracker is going to be the way to go, since they're just better at drawing cards with Tireless Tracker. Could even consider Stony Silence just to shut off the clue tokens, which they definitely rely on to draw extra cards. So that could be a potential sideboard inclusion. Path to Exile to get rid of one of their key creatures could also be good. And Spell Queller as interaction could also be fine. Spell's Guide also consideration to counter potential removal spells, a bit of a nombo if we bring in Stony Silence. Rest in Peace, I guess, is also consideration to shut down Excavator, but I don't think that's the way to go. So these are the main cards I'm considering. There's nothing terrible we really want to take out. Opponent could easily have some sweeper effects after sideboard, which makes me want to cut 1 or 2 mana creatures like birds, and take out the Mirror Weave, which relies on us having a ton of creatures in play. And then I could see bring in Stony Silence and 2 copies of Path. And I think that's about it. I don't want to over sideboard since we are still kind of a combo deck. So Spell Queller and the 3rd Path will stay in the side for now. And then we'll adapt for game 3. Alright, got a decent opening hand. Turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Bugler or Biovisionary. Already a clone effect in hand, so that's kind of what we want. Might see a turn 1 Inquisition, which might just take the Biovisionary here. Could also take the Bugler, but nope, they go straight for the Biovisionary, which makes sense. Just play Noble here. And then turn 2 we can play Bugler and hopefully find more Biovisionaries. Alright, it's going to be Extirpate our Biovisionary, oh no. Well, our opponent successfully prevented our combo, but now we just have to win the fair way through Creature Beatdown, which this hand is reasonable at doing. But a Fatal Push on the Noble is going to slow us down for a turn. Alright, another Bugler is good. I think Bugler now is one of our better cards, alongside maybe Gavany Township. So we'll just play another Noble. Our opponent is down to 2 cards in hand, so they don't have much going on, which is good. And then we can slowly take over with Bugler Beatdown. So we'll play the Windswept Heath and then fetch a land end of turn. Opponent got to see our hand anyway, so it doesn't matter which land we play. Alright, no play from our opponent. And I think we want to fetch probably Hallowed Fountain. Alright, Phantasmal Image is good too. So let's just play Bugler and see what we hit. Coiling Oracle is good. Play a fetch land, say go. And let the beatdown begin. And we still have our Stony Silences that are going to be effective at shutting down the opponent's Tireless Trackers. Fatal Push on Noble, that's fine. Let's fetch up a Breeding Pool. Alright, Courser is good too. I don't mind playing Courser since the upside on having a land on top would be pretty high. We'll attack for 2 first. And then play Courser, hope for a land. And Courser plus cards like Coiling Oracle and Militia Bugler is pretty nice too, since we often get to change the order of our library on top. Alright, just a Coiling Oracle. That's fine. So next turn we get to draw, hopefully find a land. If not, we'll play another Bugler, try and have a land on top anyway. Alright, opponent's gonna play 3 mana for Azusa, which lets them play extra lands. Doesn't do a whole lot here. So we'll take our draw step, Mirror Image on top. So we'll play Bugler in the hopes of finding a land afterwards. And Bugler finds Mirror Image and Phantasmal Image. I guess we'll go with the cheaper Phantasmal Image. And there's a land on top, perfect. Gain a life, and Path to Exile we probably want to keep on top, just to have a bit of interaction. So I'm not going to shuffle end of turn. And then attack for 4. Put our opponent to 7. Our plan B is working out pretty well here. No need for Biovisionaries. Keeping the Windswept Heath to shuffle our library, also useful when you have a Courser of Crufix in play, because then if you didn't already play land for the turn, you can always change the top of your library. So Courser's pretty synergistic in our deck. Alright, Excavator, that's a good play here. So our opponent's got 1 card left in hand, but now access to a lot of mana. And what's a big finish? Tireless Tracker, alright. So next turn they're gonna start going crazy, but of course we do have a path coming up. which is going to help. So we'll draw into path, and another Courser on top. So we probably want to exile Tireless Tracker first, since that's the scariest card, which leaves us 3, maybe 4 mana if we find land with Courser. But our opponent has seen enough and scoops it up. So yeah, even though our opponent disrupted our combo, it took them quite a few resources, Inquisition, Extirpate, and then the Fatal Pushes to slow us down on the Noble, but we still had enough mana to operate. And then they were pretty low on resources afterwards, and the plan B of just Buglers finding more creatures seemed to work out pretty well here. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, and this hand seems pretty good. We've got a turn 1 Birds, turn 2 Biovisionary, have the Mirror Weave to maybe set up the win. And we even have the Cavany Township in case plan A of Biovisionary doesn't work out, we can go on the beatdown plan instead. Alright, turn 1 Inspiring Vantage. Coiling Oracle, nice pickup. So we could be up against a burn deck. They did not have a turn 1 creature, which is good. Biovisionary could walk into something like a Searing Blaze next turn. We could instead decide to go for Coiling Oracle, but of course that's less mana efficient here. So I think we will still go for Biovisionary. And then I think I'm into fetching Basic Island to preserve our life total. Of course, would shut off white mana for Township if they deal with the birds. But if we're up against burn, saving a life is pretty important. So let's run out Visionary and say go and see if they have an end of turn effect here. Alright, nothing end of turn. And basic planes, I guess they're not burn. Instead, turn 2 Smuggler's Copter. Alright, maybe a vehicles type deck. And picked up a basic planes, which is useful. So we're not too far away from Mirror Weave for the win. And since we have a Mirror Weave, I think I prefer using mirror images to copy value creatures like Coiling Oracle instead of copying the Biovisionary. That way our opponent's going to be less concerned about killing the Visionary as well. So let's lead with Oracle, see what we draw into here. And find a land. So now we can mirror image copying Coiling Oracle as well. And then next turn we have Mirror Weave for the win. I think that's the plan. So play our land, fetch up. I guess we'll fetch another basic land, since our opponent does appear to be still somewhat aggressive deck. And I don't think we have the need for a dual land. And then mirror image. Copying Coiling Oracle. And see what we get. Militia Bugler, alright. And attack for 2, and then hope our opponent taps out next turn. And we get to Mirror Weave, targeting Visionary for the win. The only thing you have to be careful about with Mirror Weave is that you don't target a Phantasmal Imaged Biovisionary, because then, of course, if you target it with Mirror Weave, it ends up being sacrificed. But you can usually avoid that situation. Alright, 3 mana for Eidolon of Rhetoric. Can crew Smuggler's Copter. And our opponent's going to be tapped out. So that should be game. Get to see a little bit more from the opponent's deck based on what they discard with the Copter. Discards Eldrazi Displacer, I see. So they're including cards like Battlefield Forge to make colorless mana for the Displacer's ability. Fall to 15. Untap, and then Mirror Weave targeting Biovisionary. And that should be game. No need to attack. And there we go, sweet. Alright, onto sideboarding against red-white Eldrazi vehicles. So of course Stony Silence does shut down vehicles, but might be a bit too narrow. Only seen Smuggler's Copter so far, so opponent looks to be more like a mid-rangey deck. Path to Exile could be useful at getting rid of problematic creatures like Eldrazi Displacer. Is there anything else that stands out? Reclamation Sage could be okay at blowing up both Eidolon of Rhetoric and Smuggler's Copter, since Eidolon is an enchantment creature. Spellcaller could also be okay. So I think those are the main considerations. Is there anything particularly awful in this matchup? Not really. Opponent could bring in some sweeper effects like Anger of the Gods, which would make me want to maybe take out Birds and Mirror Weave. And instead bring in some of our own removal in the form of Path. I don't mind the Reclamation Sage, and then maybe the third Path or a random Spellcaller. Let's go with Spellcaller and see how it performs, and then we'll reconsider for game 3 once we get to see more from the opponent's deck. Alright, this hand seems totally fine. No clone effects, but we do have Witness and Oracle providing a bit of advantage. Opponent with a turn 1 Relic of Progenitus, which we don't really care about, although it does make Eternal Witness quite a bit worse, so I guess it is pretty impactful here if they keep it around. But for now we'll just play birds. So if we notice a lot of graveyard hate, then we can simply take out Eternal Witness for game 3. And turn to Leonin Arbiter. So I guess they have a small Hate Bears sub-theme, and had we known that beforehand, I definitely would have used my fetch land on turn 1 instead of keeping it for later. So I guess they're just red-white death and taxes at the end of the day. I don't mind keeping up Spellqueller here to maybe catch a good 3-drop they have. So we'll just play an island, say go. And by keeping up mana, if our opponent plays something like a Ghost Quarter intending to blow up our lands, we can simply pay the 2 mana tax from the Arbiter. But yeah, having these 2 fetch lands stuck in our hands, definitely a bit awkward. Could of course try and ambush with Spellqueller, but opponent has 2 mana ups, they could easily have a Bolt or a Path. And there's a Ghost Quarter. But they're going to go with Eldrazi Displacer instead, which we're going to exile with the Spellqueller. But now of course if they have removal, they can kill Spellqueller and get it back. Alright, so what's the plan here? Probably just playing a Noble Hierarch, playing our fetch land, saying go. That way we can play the attacks end of turn to fetch with the Misty, as well as get our land from Ghost Quarter. That seems reasonable. So we'll play Noble, play our fetch land, and I think we'll keep the Spellqueller back to block the Arbiter instead of trying to get 2 damage in. Kind of expecting the Spellqueller to die anyway, so probably better to get in 2 damage, but on the off chance that they don't kill Spellqueller, I don't want to be trading 2 damage for 2 damage. Alright, opponent tries to Ghost Quarter or land. In response, we'll pay for Arbiter. And then we can search up a land, and I guess we'll get a basic Plains. So now we're also free to fetch up a land with the Misty Rainforest without having to pay for the Arbiter. And a Flicker Wisp, sure. Let's see what it targets. And Flicker Wisp targets Spellqueller, so that's gonna return the Eldrazi Displacer. Alright, I guess we'll just fetch with the Misty Rainforest now. And what dual land do we want to get? Probably a Breeding Pool. So our opponent gets their Eldrazi Displacer back, which is pretty annoying. Can do all sorts of things, but I guess our opponent doesn't have any colorless mana yet in play, so that's the bright side here. And now Arbiter also gets to attack for 2. Alright, at least we get our Spellqueller back, which can block Flicker Wisp. And Courser of Krufix is a nice one to have on top. We're still pretty far away from having 4 Biovisionaries in play, so I guess we'll start with Courser here, see what's on top, and then we can also change the top of our library with Coiling Oracle to try and find a land. Opponent's going to exile a card in response, that's fine. And what do we find? Finds a Biovisionary. Alright, let's play Coiling Oracle. So we can draw the Biovisionary. So we already have 2. And there's another Biovisionary on top. Alright, I guess we'll play our land. Gain a life with Courser, say go. And then hope our opponent doesn't have a ton of removal, since we're getting pretty close to assembling the win here. So we're definitely not going to fetch, since we don't want to shuffle away the Biovisionary. And then keeping the fetch to shuffle our library with the Courser in play is also pretty useful. But Arbiter does make things a little bit trickier. Flicker Wisp will definitely block. Happy to trade. And it's going to be Militia Bugler, so we both have it. Alright, let's see what they find. And looks like our opponent failed to find. Alright, so far so good. Draw Biovisionary, Windswept Heath will play off the top for free. And there's a Horizon Canopy on top. Alright, so we could also Eternal Witness here, getting back Spellqueller, since our opponent can't force us to exile the Spellqueller, which is pretty decent, although we will be unable to play the Spellqueller afterwards because of the Arbiter taxing our fetch lands. So I guess what we can do is pay the Arbiter tax to get these fetch lands into actual mana producing lands, and then we can play Biovisionary. That seems okay. So we'll pay the Arbiter tax and then fetch. And if there's a great card on top, we can always decide to keep it instead of fetching twice. And we don't need to get an untapped land here, since we won't need all the mana. So we'll get a tapped Hallowed Fountain. And birds we can shuffle away. So no need to preserve the Misty. And we'll get a tapped Breeding Pool. And Bugler on top, that's good. That's a good draw. And we'll play the first Biovisionary. Alright, so far so good. The only drawback of this turn is that we didn't take full advantage of the fact our opponent was tapped out of Relic mana. Opponent finds a Ghost Corridor, which could blow up a land if they want to, but they probably need the mana themselves. Maybe they have something like a Restoration Angel here. Alright, so we could play Bugler, which finds Bugler, and then maybe there's a land on top for Courser. Instead of showing that we have 3 Biovisionaries, that seems better. So let's Bugle it up. And Coiling Oracles, more Buglers. We'll go with the Bugler. And Collected Company on top, that's a good hit, so no need to play Bugler, otherwise we shuffle away the Company. So instead we'll just play another Biovisionary. So we're halfway there. Keep Company on top and see if they have an end of turn response here. And if they Ghost Corridors, we're not forced to shuffle our library, so we can just decline to shuffle. Alright, they're just gonna displace their own Bugler, makes sense. So using Ghost Corridor as a colorless source, another reason why they don't want to sacrifice it. Finds another Arbiter, that's fine. So they've got Arbiter and 2 unknown cards in hand, now double Ghost Corridor. So they're getting close to activating Displacer twice a turn. Plays Arbiter, and no good attacks. We get to untap, drawing 2 Company. So we could just main phase a Company here. Of course, with Displacer's ability at the ready, they could potentially mess up our Biovisionary win condition, but not too badly, since then we'll just win on the following turn. So I think I will main phase Collected Company here. I guess one card that's a little bit awkward right now would be Phantasmal Image because of the Eldrazi Displacer, so that's not a card we want to find. We did find Phantasmal Image, but we also found another Biovisionary, so I think we've got it locked up here. Can just get Phantasmal Image and Biovisionary, play another Biovisionary, and even if they kill one with Displacer, we still have 4 in play. So Visionary, Image, Image copies Visionary. Doesn't matter on the remaining cards there. And then play another Biovisionary. And yeah, got some redundancy here. 5 Biovisionaries. And yeah, that's game. Awesome. So managed to assemble the Biovisionary win in both games. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And how about this one? This one's not great. Can't play Image on turn 2. Courser of Krufix on 3, and we have 2 of them, which isn't necessarily great, so could see mulliganing this one. Alright, this is a bit better. We've got a Coiling Oracle on 2, which hopefully ramps us, and probably have to keep the Visionary here. And then for now we'll play a tapped Hallowed Fountain. So we've got Biovisionary coming up, 2 clone effects already, and a Bugler to maybe find another one. So if they don't kill Visionary on the spot, we might be okay. But it's pretty important that we find a land here. Opponent with turn 1 Polluted Delta. Alright, Breeding Pool. Perfect hit here, so off to a good start. Polluted Delta getting a Godless Shrine and a Bloodstain Mire, so not sure what we're up against. Could be a 5-color Death Shadow deck perhaps, but they didn't take damage from their fetches and shocks on turn 1, so seems less likely. Some Mardu deck, who knows? This might be a Collective Brutality, taking a look at our hand, maybe trying to snatch a Collected Company. And yep, there we see Collective Brutality, killing the Coiling Oracle, and taking a look at our hand, but no Collected Companies in hand, instead just 4 creatures, so that went pretty well for us. So our opponent could be on some sort of Mardu Pyromancer deck, although not the usual sequence you expect to see. Alright, so running out Biovisionary here is probably just going to get it killed. So I think I prefer playing the Bugler first, and maybe play Biovisionary alongside a clone effect in the same turn, so we can ensure that at least one Biovisionary sticks around. Alright, and for now we find another Mirror Image. I mean, I think I'll take it over Noble. And then if they don't kill Bugler, we can just copy infinite Buglers, and if not, we'll try and win with Biovisionary. So the hope is that they just have a bunch of Lingering Souls, and not a bunch of Lightning Bolts. Also, playing a clone with only 1 creature in play is kind of risky, since if they kill the creature, the clone does nothing. So it's better to have a bit of redundancy. Play Biovisionary before we play clone, as we see Liliana, which is going to kill the Bugler. Alright, Liliana was pretty annoying here, since we won't effectively be able to pressure Liliana, since we can only play 1 card a turn, and that means that the +1 making us discard is going to discard relevant cards too. So yeah, Liliana was about the worst possible here. Alright, a quick editor's note here. As I was working on the video, we probably should have been clued in on the presence of Liliana of the Veil because of the turn 2 Collected Brutality killing Coiling Oracle, which is an unusual play. So because they killed the Coiling Oracle with the Brutality, they kind of cleared the path for a potential Edict effect, and Liliana of the Veil is the primary suspect. So if we expected a Liliana of the Veil from the opponent, we probably should have taken Noble Hierarch with the Militia Bugler trigger instead of another Mirror Image, because one of the worst case scenarios against Liliana of the Veil is being stuck with too many expensive cards in hand. You would much rather be able to empty your hand, play Noble Hierarch plus maybe Phantasmal Image in the same turn, so you can more effectively pressure Liliana and don't have to discard all your valuable cards. So we probably made a mistake by taking the Mirror Image instead of the Noble Hierarch in the previous turn. Alright, Rainforests. So I think we'll play Biovisionary and then hold on to the Misty for now. We could play it, that way if we draw land we can go Image plus Mirror Image in the same turn. But I think I want to discard it to Liliana's Plus ability here, and with 3 lands we can still operate pretty well. I guess Collected Company then becomes a dead draw, but that's probably still okay. So we'll say go, and hope Biovisionary gets to stick around. If they have instant speed removal for Biovisionary, the game's probably over. Liliana's gonna plus, we'll discard a land here. And it's gonna be a Dreadbore on Biovisionary, so yeah. Now we're definitely in trouble. Maybe an Inquisition or a Thoughtseize too here. Or maybe a Gurmag Angler. Yep, Gurmag Angler, leaving Lingering Souls in the graveyard. So this looks like some sort of Mardu mid-range deck. And we drew Collected Company, but we discarded land last turn. Yeah, maybe we could have hedged our bets in case they did kill the Biovisionary on the spot. Instead, just keep the land so Company becomes a live top deck. Discard a Mirror Image since we have 3 of them anyway. For now we can still just Phantasmal Image copying Gurmag Angler. But if they have a Lightning Bolt, they still get to kill the Phantasmal Image, of course. If they can't kill the Gurmag Angler, then we can just start copying a bunch of Gurmag Anglers with the Mirror Image, since Mirror Image doesn't target the Phantasmal Image when it enters the battlefield. So we'll see. Of course, our opponent can just -2 Liliana once again to get rid of the Gurmag, which is probably what they'll do. Yep. So for now, if these Mirror Images are dead cards, and we are under a pretty fast clock. What is this? 4 mana, maybe another Planeswalker. Hazoret, wow. Alright, now we're taking 10. So yeah, this game didn't go very well. Removal heavy decks are definitely going to be difficult matchups. Removal heavy decks and then combo decks that are faster than we are, since we're not the fastest deck. Alright, picked up the land, so our best hope is to hit something nice with the Collected Company here. But I don't see us beating an active Hazoret, and then Lingering Souls coming up too. Opponent had a pretty nice draw. And it's going to be a Chandra, Torch of Defiance too, yep. At least we get a bit more info going into game 2 and 3. And do we even show them the Collected Company? I guess it doesn't really matter. Might as well. And yeah, we have to Collected Company before blockers, otherwise we're taking lethal. But our opponent did not activate Chandra yet, so they could still -2 to kill one of our creatures here. Alright, Eternal Witness is a good pickup. And then what else do we take? I guess Courser. And then Eternal Witness can target Collected Company. We're gonna draw Botanical Sanctum, so we won't have 5 mana next turn, so we can't get back Phantasmal Image, for example, and then go Image plus Mirror Image in the same turn. So I think getting back Collected Company is probably the way to go. If we had more time, of course, we could get back Biovisionary, set that up, but we're just under too much pressure. And then we'll have to chum block one of the 5-powered creatures. Take 5, Chandra can't kill us, can put us to 1. They're probably going to -us killing the Courser. And then we'll die next turn. But at least we gave it a shot. Alright, they're just going to Lightning Bolt us then. Alright, well, that was going to be a difficult draw to beat. And the matchup in general also seems pretty rough, as their opponent has a ton of disruption and then some very efficient win conditions. This does seem like a matchup where Path to Exile could be okay. Deals with Gurmag pretty efficiently. Not great against Lingering Souls on the other hand. Also a matchup for Tireless Tracker to get a bit of card advantage going. And Rest in Peace seems okay in small numbers. All 3 seems excessive, but I could see 1 or 2 being okay at shutting down Lingering Souls, Delve on Gurmag Angler. Maybe if they have cards like Battle Reveler in there too. So 1 or 2 Rest in Pieces. What are we taking out? Mirrorweave seems terrible. I could see cutting some number of Mirror Image. If they're killing all our creatures, we won't have a ton of targets. Phantasmal Image, on the other hand, can still copy the opponent's creatures at least. Maybe we'll take out all the Mirror Images. At that point, maybe we just cut the Biovisionary plan altogether. Alright, fine. We've had our fun with Biovisionary in the previous games already. I could see cutting the combo altogether since it's going to be difficult to pull off and kind of transform into a more mid-rangey, fair creature deck. So we'll bring in 2 Rest in Peace, a 3 path, 2 trackers, and I guess now we have 3 more slots. Spellqueller doesn't strike me as great against the Lightning Bolt deck. Could consider Spellskite, which is good against Lightning Bolt, just to protect our key creatures. I guess we could just bring in 2 mirror images to copy some of our value creatures. Do still need a critical mass of creatures for Company and for Bugler to hit, and we did take out a few creatures already, so the hit rate is going to be a bit lower, but hopefully still good enough. We'll give this a shot. Don't have high confidence. Of course, we no longer have the Biovisionary combo in our deck. We're kind of just a bad Company deck at this point, but we'll give it a shot. This hand seems reasonable. Turn 1 birds. Turn 2, if they kill the birds, Coiling Oracle. Otherwise, we get to start bugling. Better to play Courser when we haven't played a land for the turn yet, in case we find a land off the top. And we'll lead by getting a breeding pool here. Alright. Let's see if they have some hand disruption here. Maybe push or bolt for the birds. Nothing. Alright. We could also Coiling Oracle here to kind of accelerate our mana in case they kill the birds anyway with a 2 mana removal spell. Could also Phantasmal Image the birds. That doesn't seem great. I think we'll just play the Bugler anyway here. And then hope that the bird survives. Alright, so we can take another Bugler or we can take a Noble. So if they kill the birds, we're going to want a Noble. If they don't kill the birds, then another Bugler seems great. So I think we'll risk it, and worst case scenario, we can hope to find a land with Oracle. Since Militia Bugler is very good against these decks that try to 1-for-1 you with removal spells, and if Bugler sticks around, we could always Phantasmal Image it as well. So we've got some options next turn, which is good. Second Blood Crypt, untapped, and maybe a Collected Brutality again, killing the birds. No Collected Companies in hand, but we do have a Path to Exile this time that they can hit. And then next turn we have to decide between Coiling Oracle to try and find a land, or Phantasmal Image copying Bugler. So they do take away the path, which is unfortunate. And the birds, which was our mana source, pick up a Tireless Tracker. So I'm going to go with Oracle over Image copying Bugler, since we won't be able to play most of the cards we find anyway. So let's Oracle it up. Opponent also with 2 copies of Lingering Souls in their graveyard, which they can flash back at some point. Picked up a Spellskite instead, which is decent against removal spells, but we would much rather just find a land here to deploy our many 3-drops. So kind of seeing the drawback of your mana creature getting killed. We've got a bit of insulation against a potential Liliana of the Veil. Instead it's going to be Young Pyromancer, but no follow-up. And pick up Collected Company, which we're pretty far from casting. So we could also Image copying the Coiling Oracle here, which is probably the play. And alright, picked up a Township, so next turn we'll have access to 3 mana at least. We'll get in there. They could have a Lightning Bolt killing Bugler, and then they can block the Oracle with an Elemental token, but doesn't look like it. Alright, our late game's looking okay, but our opponent does have the Lingering Souls that they can flash back, and we don't have a great answer to a bunch of flying tokens. So there's a flashback Lingering Souls. So at the end of the day, our opponent does appear to be a Mardu Pyromancer deck, just a slightly different build. Usually don't see Hazarets and Chandrels in the main deck. Alright, let's untap, pick up a land, so can go Collected Company, or we can go Tireless Tracker, land, make a clue. I guess we could also go Courser of Krufix, hope to hit a land off the top, but when we have a land in hand, it doesn't seem necessary. I don't think we'll have the time necessarily to crack a bunch of clues with the Tireless Tracker, since we already have so many expensive cards in hand. So I think I would rather just go for the Collected Company here. And is there a reason to do it main phase? Not really. And I'm fine to trade any creatures here, so we'll attack with everyone. I guess if we find a clone, we might want to copy the Bugler before he dies, so we'll see how they block. Alright, opponent just takes it. That's fine. And Township is going to be useful too for our beatdown plan here. So our hand is fine, as long as our opponent doesn't find one of their haymakers, like Hazred or Chandra. I guess a Blood Moon would be pretty painful too now, if they have that. Lingering Souls get in for 2. Don't have any flying creatures we can find. We didn't bring in our Spellquellers, did we? We did not, so I don't think we have any flyers, so sure, we'll take 2. And we'll probably see a flashback Lingering Souls once again. So we might also want to start getting life with Courser as quickly as possible here. End of turn will Company. And oof, that's a brick. And kind of see the drawback here of bringing in a bunch of Path to Exiles and Rest in Pieces. We do make our collected companies a lot worse. So image can copy Bugler. Could copy Pyromancer, doesn't do much. Oracle could give us an extra land. Is that better than Bugler? I guess a land might be more valuable at this point, but the Bugler attacks for a bit more. So I guess we'll still copy the Bugler. And what does a Bugler find? Eternal Witness, which is decent, but probably going to be too slow here. Yeah, if we had some mana creatures in play and could play 2 of these spells a turn, we might have had a chance, but now we're just stuck playing 1 3-drop a turn, being pressured by a bunch of spirit tokens. Not a great recipe, so we will still attack with everyone. And then I think the plan is to play Courser, hope to gain a bit of life back. So right now they would be taking 3, down to 8. We could also go for Eternal Witness, get back Company, but that's going to be too slow. If we get back Path, we can't cast it since we only have 1 white mana, which we need for green for casting the Witness in the first place. So yeah, I think the play is Courser, and hope to find something nice off the top. And find a Noble Hierarch, which doesn't do much for us. If our opponent is holding a bunch of Lightning Bolts, they could also just kill us right now. If we hit a land and could play a Spellskite, Spellskite kind of saves us 1 damage on a potential Lightning Bolt. Instead it's going to be Fatal Push on Courser end of turn. So yeah, now we're just going to die in 2 turns to the Spirit tokens. And thanks to Young Pyromancer, opponent's got plenty of chump blockers with the Elemental tokens to block the Buglers. So I think this game's over. But yeah, the Biovisionary plan would probably not have worked out here. And the Hazoret as well now. So I don't think we have any outs at this point. Alright, so that's going to be the game. GG. We got to see the deck in action in a number of circumstances here. Got to assemble our Biovisionary combo a number of times, which was pretty sweet. Even got to pull off the Mirror Weave combo too. So overall pretty satisfied with the result. Of course, not the most competitive deck, but getting some wins here and there with Biovisionary is pretty satisfying. Always fun when you can win with alternate win conditions. So that's going to wrap things up for today. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.